Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to Teachers That Sparkle, the place where we talk about all things to help you sparkle and shine in that classroom of yours. Wow, it is November 20 as I record this and release this, and many of you are getting a much needed Thanksgiving holiday break. I hope you're taking full advantage of all of your time and really taking care of you. And that is our topic for today's or this week's episode. Self-care equals self-love. And I want to talk about that with you because so many times as teachers, we give, and we forget to take time for ourselves. And I know this to be true because I've spoken to so many teachers and seen so many teachers go through these things. And I'm going to talk to you about that today. But before we get started, for those of you who are, in this midst of wrapping up the school house because you're getting ready for break or you are in break, just remember that sometimes our students don't always feel as excited about these breaks as we do. And that's something I probably should have mentioned last week, but even going into, more importantly, probably the Christmas holiday, sometimes our students really do need that structure of what we provide them at school. And you might see an increase in student behaviors during these weeks between Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays. I know I always did with our students. And a lot of times talking to them, they were not excited about having time off. Sometimes they don't necessarily know where their meals are going to come from because we provide typically breakfast and lunch at school. Sometimes they don't know where they're going to be staying during the holidays because their parents still have to work and they don't typically have a daycare. So they may go somewhere unfamiliar that might seem a little bit uncomfortable. Or they may not know what kind of environment they're going to be in when they're at home, just because older siblings might be around with their friends. And I know how that can affect younger children in particular, or vice versa. As older children are home, they may have some expectations of taking care of the younger children when they're not fully equipped, to do all of that just because of everything going on in the world these days. So just keep that in mind as well, because our children may need a little self-care in addition to what we do for ourselves. All right, so having said that, let's talk about this week's topic. This week, I know that it's weird for me. For the first time in 28 years, I am not off this week. Now, clearly, I have control over my own schedule. And clearly, I could have done some of these activities, probably not last week because my week was pretty busy, but maybe in the evenings last week or over the weekend, so I wouldn't have to be recording all day today or taking care of meetings this week. But some things are inevitable. Some things just keep continuing to move on. And I am adjusting a little bit in this new realm. Having said that, I know that was always a week in the past, much, much needed for me. As a teacher, as a specialist, as a district coordinator, as an assistant principal, and then, of course, in the last 16 years as the principal. We get to that place where we just give, go, go, go. And I hear this so many times. If I just make it to Thanksgiving break, then I can rest. If I just make it to Thanksgiving break, then I can do blah, blah, blah. If I can just make it to Thanksgiving break. And I know for me, a lot of it was, if I can just make it to Thanksgiving break, and then I had a laundry list of things that I needed to get done. I've been a single person for 13 years. I have always lived in a home, in a house, not an apartment. So there's yard work, there's house cleaning, there's laundry. Of course, I'm a single, so my laundry doesn't pile up too much. But when my daughter lived at home, where there was two of us, and when I was still married, there was three of us. And I know some of you have multiple children, so things like that can pile up. Then I would always think about when it's Thanksgiving break, I added go see friends, have lunch with so-and-so, go to this event, go to that event. And that list gets to be so lengthy that it's almost hard to give ourselves that time. And I think when things really changed for me was when I actually started training for the half marathon every year. So I start my training somewhere between September and October. Of course, typically we're running all year long, but I really get into the more consistent schedule and training. And when I had that, it made me have to focus on that schedule, which forced me to give myself that time. And for me, running is self-care. I know not everybody feels that way, and I'm just using this as an example, but to me, it was self-care. It gave me an opportunity to exhaust myself physically out on the roads, which I became one that had a process to also let out all of the negative thoughts and feelings I was having as I was doing that. Breathe in some fresh air, be able to feel like I can accomplish something besides just work, because I became such a workaholic, and still feel good about my body and keep myself healthy. That's what running does for me. So when I was focused on it so much, I went out on those roads by myself. Now, maybe toward the beginning of my running time, back when I first got started, I think my daughter was starting high school the first year that I became a principal. And maybe she was into her second year of high school, but nonetheless, she would always, on my Sunday long runs, get on her bike and come with me, because she would bring me water or a banana or something, because she wanted to be part of what I was doing. But other than that, for the most part, I was out on the roads by myself. And it was that think time that really benefited my own stress level, my own self-care. After my runs, I always make sure that I take time for me. I take a long hot bath on the days that I do a long run, especially in the winter, because I'm so cold when I come back in. I take a nice shower afterward. If it's a shorter run, I take my time getting ready. I make sure I have something to eat. I just kind of ease into my day, because I feel like, wow, this was so good to cleanse my heart and soul, that now I can get my day started on a perfect note, right? Or back in the day when I was actually working in the schools, in the evening, it would give me that opportunity to get out and run, let go of all of the junk from the day, right? And be able to then calm myself down, maybe pour a glass of wine after, and get ready for bed. Now, I use that running example just to share with you how that is one form of self-care. You may not be a runner. You may not want to do something like that, but there are so many different options. The whole point is making that time for something you enjoy by yourself. We feel guilty, y'all. If you're a woman, you're a mom, you're a teacher, I'm going to start with you. Okay, if you check those boxes, we feel like any free time we have, we should be worried about our families, our partner, our children. What are we thinking about for tomorrow? What's going to happen for our students the next day? What's going to happen with our kids tonight? Let's get them all to all of their activities, et cetera, et cetera. What does my husband or wife need? Well, you're a woman, husband or wife need for themselves. And that's what we keep thinking about. We don't put ourselves on that list. If you're a dad, you're a male, you're a teacher, you're thinking the same kinds of things. Am I providing enough for my family? Should I be working more? Should I be getting this done? What's happening with my students tomorrow? Are my kids in a good place? Does my wife need support? Does my husband, whatever it is, we tend to, as educators, think about everybody else rather than ourselves. And I'm going to give you some real life examples. I'm going to talk to you about two people in my world that I spent a significant amount of time as their principal and watching their journey. So my first one, I'm going to call her Susie. Susie was somebody who totally was focused on her career for a very long time, and she got married. And after being married for a couple of years, and she married the love of her life, and she was so happy. After being married for a couple of years, the marriage ended. And she threw herself back into her work, because so many times that's what we do, right? Because that's what we know. And it's a way to escape emotions and feelings. And especially as a teacher, because you get those good positive vibes from when your kids succeed on things and so forth. And so she just threw herself into work. And I saw her really advance her career pretty quickly. And then she ended up getting remarried, and they decided to have some children. And she wanted this great grand career, and she wanted everything for her children. She wanted her children to experience everything, as almost as if she was a stay-at-home mom. So she was, I'm not even joking, y'all, killing herself. She was getting sick often. She was struggling with her own emotional state, her own stress level, because she was trying to be everything to everyone. And guys, this is where it's super important to remember some of those boundaries, but more importantly, exactly what we're talking about today, to give yourself some self-love, some self-care. And she would say often, well, I'll do it over Thanksgiving break, or I'll do that in the summer, or I'll do, but then she would have this list of things to do, and it never got done. Her own me time never got done. Then I'm going to introduce you to my other person, and we're going to call her Mary. Mary was somebody who, her children, she was an empty nester. They were off to college. She was very committed to her students at school. She had been recently remarried to somebody. It's a very long story, but somebody she knew for a long time. And again, children were off to college. You would think has the perfect setup. But what she ended up doing is just feeling like, okay, my kids are not here, so I need to take care of somebody. And so she would do a lot of volunteer work, and that's always very admirable, and that's always very good. But here's what ended up happening. She started to get sick. She actually got injured, which led to her needing to spend less time walking and doing her physical activity, which then led to her health diminishing, which led to some illnesses. And she was miserable to a point where she had to go on an FMLA leave for a while. And then she was miserable because then she wasn't at school with her children. And you can see how all of these things become connected. And I remember saying to Mary, you need to give yourself some self-care, some self-love. Just take time for yourself. Thinking in my mind, you're an empty nester. You're not running children around. You're not doing all of the things. Your husband is pretty self-sufficient as well. Give yourself that time. But she felt so guilty for doing that because she was so used to taking care of her children. Now that they were gone, she felt the need that she had to be taking care of everybody else. So I shared those two stories, and I want to tell you what ended up happening to both of these women. They still teach, but they are still trying to be everything to everyone. And they're still catching illnesses, and they're still feeling overwhelmed. And they'll get on phone conversations with people, and then they'll get halfway through a conversation, and then they have to end the conversation because of all the things that are going on in their world. And then people are challenged to be able to hold conversations with them, right? I see them pushing and pushing and pushing. And I promise what's going to end up happening is they're going to hit that wall, just like Mary did, and then require them to have to take more time off. Y'all, self-care is not being selfish. Self-care truly is about loving yourself, giving yourself the same respect, the same care that you do want to give to your children, to your partner, to your best friend, to your mom, to your dad, your family, whomever that would be. I really want you to reframe that. And I want you to really think about this in particular during these times off. Yes, we want to get all of the holiday activities done and we want to catch up on all of the things. But I want you to do one thing after listening to this episode. I want you to commit that you give yourself 20 to 30 minutes every day just to you. Now, does that mean waking up earlier than your children? Maybe. Staying up later than your children? Maybe. Carving out a moment in the day where you say to your kids, if you have them or whoever is in your home, I'm going in this room. I'm not going to be bothered for these 30 minutes. And if you communicate that in a way that really gets your people to understand, look, this isn't about any of y'all. This is about me. I need to start making myself a bit of a priority, and I just need 30 minutes. And I promise you, most people are going to go, 30 minutes? That's all you need? Okay, not a problem. Do you need an hour? Because I've been there. But give yourself that opportunity to do that. You could read a book. You could journal. You could just sit and binge watch something for 30 minutes, right? You could go take a walk. You could go in a room and do some type of exercise from YouTube. You could even, and this is pretty bold, I even have trouble with this, but you might even go to your local restaurant and sit down and have yourself a alcoholic or non-alcoholic beverage. Just sit and people watch. Just go enjoy your day. It's winter for many of you. Maybe you sit inside and drink a cup of coffee or a tea. Guys, there's such a laundry list of items that you can do just for you. It could be the same thing every day and it could be different every day. It doesn't really matter. What matters most is that you take that time for you. And once you start doing that for a long enough period of time, it's going to become a habit. It's going to become your new normal. Because not just this week, if you're off, or the days that you're off, or just the weekends, but you need to make sure you give yourself that time, even on the work days. Maybe it's not 30 minutes, maybe it's 20, maybe it's 15, but giving yourself that opportunity, even if it's just take a bubble bath. And you might have to shut the door so that your children, your dog, your husband, your wife, whoever doesn't come in. And maybe you don't want bubbles, but you just sit in a hot bath. Maybe you just stand in a hot shower. Whatever it is, find that thing that lights you up that would give you that opportunity to breathe. Because not only will this become habit, but you'll start to feel like, now that I have that time, that's my time where I can release. And it will eventually, just like everything else I talked about earlier, the negative pieces snowballing, this will snowball as well in the positive direction. You start to release stress, you're going to talk to people better. Your health is going to improve. Your stress level will diminish. You'll be less tired. Meaning exhausted. Maybe you'll still be sleepy tired because you work hard, but less of that exhaustive feeling in your soul. You'll know that you matter and that you are just as important to take care of as everybody else in your family. And who knows, maybe it's a great example for your children, for your other people in your world. I know when I started making my running an example, my daughter fell right in line. She works out, she takes care of her body, she takes care of her health, and ultimately we're very healthy people, and we're lucky enough that we don't have to worry about something coming upon. Of course, God forbid, we don't get to choose, if something big major happens, but we don't get that common cold all the time. We don't get the I have a sore throat all the time. We don't get those types of things because we take care of ourselves. All right, guys, a little bit longer than I wanted today, but I thought this one was super important. So 2 big things to take away. Number 1, you matter. You are important, and that classroom's not going to run without you. So if you don't take care of yourself, then everybody's going to suffer. And number 2, think about that with your students as well, especially during these times with longer vacations. They may need a little extra processing time. They may need a little extra emotional support because when they go home, they're not always 100% sure what they're going to be going home to. All right. Enjoy the holiday this week. Go be you, relax, spend time with the people that matter most to you. I know I'm going to be doing so. And just for that one day of Thanksgiving, if you're here in the United States or whatever you are celebrating, don't think about school. Let it go and just think about you and your life and your family and everything that you are grateful for. All right, I will come back to you next week right here on Teachers That Sparkle. Have a great holiday. Bye, y'all.